Seattle's reputation as an incubator for left-leaning, union-friendly ideas is long established. It has a $15 minimum wage, which is the highest in the U.S. So, Don Creary says if a union for Uber drivers is going to work anywhere, it's here.
Someone will always work for cheaper. I mean, the reason that we have unions to a large extent at all is because there's always the guy who's willing to work cheaper than the next guy, and there comes a certain point where you have to draw the line.
Creary told me that Uber rates started at $1.80 US a mile, but they're now down to just over $1. Uber can also cut drivers' rates further by offering a sale whenever the company wants. The critical issue here is whether drivers are Uber employees or are they independent contractors. Under both U.S. and Canadian law, employees can unionize, but contractors cannot. Another driver, Larry Green, told me that he sees himself as a contractor.
I choose when and where I spend my time, and I make those decisions. And basically I look at Uber as simply a platform that allows me to reach a financial goal.
It's part of their larger effort to preempt, which is...
We dropped in on a drivers' meeting at the offices of the Teamsters Union. It's helping with the organizing effort. And we learned of a new term for people like Uber drivers who work with their smartphones. It's called the gig economy, people who take on many short-term jobs or gigs to earn a living.
More and more of the work that we do in America and around the world is going to be dispatched through apps, whether that's healthcare, home cleaning businesses, other types of delivery services. That work is going to start happening instead of on the factory floor or in a normal office setting. That's going to start happening over the smartphone and over applications. And so even though your work happens over a smartphone, you're still a worker and you're still a person who should have rights and a say in what happens to you on a day-to-day basis.
Uber is fighting back hard with this. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has launched a lawsuit on its behalf challenging the bylaw, and the Uber rep we spoke to confirmed the company is calling drivers, urging them to vote no.
When you ask them why they enjoy driving on the platform, it's because of that flexibility. And anything that threatens that flexibility threatens the reliability, the safety of the platform, and we want to make sure that that is preserved.
So, Chris, that was the situation in Seattle, Washington. What about the challenge for Uber drivers to unionize in Canada?
Well, it's interesting. In the U.S., the fight really is going to focus on this idea of independent contractors versus employees. But in some jurisdictions in Canada, including where we are in British Columbia, they've actually kind of already resolved that. And they've actually said, yes, there is a third category, dependent contractors, kind of a hybrid of both. Now, of course, here in Vancouver, we don't have any Uber, so we don't have any Uber drivers. So, but if we did, those drivers probably would find it much easier to at least get unionized than the ones in Seattle are. And I did talk to a couple of union folks here, and in their opinion, for sure, going forward, unionization could well be part of the whole puzzle around Uber.
Something else I'm curious about, I talked to some Uber drivers in Toronto, I guess last week, and all were happy to talk, but only one would talk on camera. You seem to have no problem getting people in Seattle to chat with you about what's a fairly controversial issue.
It is a controversial issue. We hailed a couple of cabs, a couple of Uber cabs, and the drivers did talk to us. They even went on camera. Some of that's cultural. Americans tend to be pretty friendly. They tend to like to talk to media people. So we didn't have any difficulty, but some of them were quite concerned because those who had spoken in the past to media about the union and were in favor of it, some of them said Uber suspended them. They got their licenses back eventually, but there was that fear.